Brittany Maclean here, joined by Devin Heroux from Saalbach, Austria. We are about halfway through the World Alpine Ski Championships, and it has not lacked any excitement. There's tons of things to chat about, so Devin, let's get right into it. Mikaela Shiffrin today is the biggest news as she's pulled out from the giant slalom. Talk to me about what the energy's like on the ground.
It's a good question, Britt. Hello to you and all the sports fans back home in Canada. Yes, the American mega skiing superstar, Mikaela Shiffrin. I think everybody was expecting her to be competing in the giant slalom. She had said that was the plan going into this. And then early here, you were all sleeping back in Canada, but early here in Austria, Mikaela Shiffrin taking to her Instagram and saying that I'm just not ready. She said she is experiencing some trauma, some PTSD from her crash in Killington a couple of months ago. Of course, that was a bit of a horrific crash, Britt. She had a puncture in her abdomen, so she continues to recover from that. Obviously, there were a lot of people here who were excited about the fact that Shiffrin was going to be back competing, but she's not. She will, however, be competing in the combined team event. This is a new event at the World Championships. It will also feature in the Olympics a year from now, and she is teaming up with Breezy Johnson, Britt, who of course won the women's downhill. Surprisingly, she won't be competing with Lindsey Vonn, and Vonn at her opening press conference said that she would love to team up with Shiffrin and put all of those World Cup wins together. So Shiffrin just willing to say, I'm not ready, and I think that's a pretty incredible thing. You have to have courage to be afraid sometimes, Britt, and Shiffrin is going to sit this one out.
And I think these athletes have more courage than so many other sports I've witnessed. I mean, it takes so much grit and so much bravery to do what they do. Let's pivot a little to this men's team, because coming in, talk about bravery, we had a lot of expectations riding on the Canadian men's program with the disappointment of Cam Alexander's injury, and then you have Jack Crawford not really living up to what he thought he was capable of performing at. You know, what do you take away from this, and what have you learned from these men this week?
Quite simply, Britt, it was a really challenging World Championship for the men's speed team. As you said, they came in here with unparalleled success. Jack Crawford, the Kitzbühel King, Cam Alexander third. Jack was a defending Super G champion. Cam third in downhill at the World Championship 2 years ago. And so all signs were pointing to this Canadian men's team doing something great. And then it all unraveled. You know, my takeaway from all of this so far, covering my first Alpine World Championship, is that they are living on a razor-thin edge of fear of just going down and risking it all. And I think for Jack Crawford in particular, you know, he was so disappointed when he spoke to me after his downhill, and he said, I just wasn't willing to risk it all. I think he was exhausted. There was so much hoopla and media requests, and everywhere he went around here in Saalbach, he was a celebrity. And Jack is someone I've gotten to know, and he doesn't like the spotlight. So it was deflating with Cam, an injury in a downhill run, not even in competition. He goes home. He's back home in Canada rehabbing, and I think that was a huge deflating factor for the Canadian men, and I think it's a valuable learning experience that at any major international event, it's not going to go your way. How do you pivot? They'll try and pivot, Britt, for the last half of the World Cup season, and of course keep their sights, as we all will, on Milano Cortina about a year from now.
And there really isn't anything more dangerous than an athlete coming from disappointment and having an extra fire underneath them. So looking forward to seeing what that rest of the World Cup season look like. Now, we have a full team that hasn't even competed yet. You know, the slalom and giant slalom teams are waiting patiently to get the chance to compete. I know you've had a chance to chat with a lot of the athletes this morning. Those Canadians back home that are a bit less familiar, tell us a bit about what that roster looks like and what you're most looking forward to.
Well, Britt, you have experienced an Olympics, and this kind of feels like it, where you have the first part of the Olympics, and then those athletes go home, and then a whole new wave show up here to the party, and that's exactly what's happening here as we look to the second half of the Alpine World Championships. So the tech team for Canada rolling in here today, and look no further than the defending world champion, Laurent Saint-Germain, winning the slalom, a bit of a surprise 2 years ago in Maribel, France. And just a short time ago where I'm standing, I spoke to Laurence, and you know, she's so lovely. She has this wonderful demeanor, Britt, because she says to me, I still can't believe I'm the defending world champion. She says it hasn't really sunken into this point, but Laurence, along with Amelia Smart and Ali Nullmeyer, they are the three women who are in the tech events here. They arrived in Saalbach last night, and for Laurent Saint-Germain, she's right into the belly of the beast in this combined event that I was telling you about with Shiffrin and Breezy Johnson. It's going to be Laurence and Cassidy Gray teaming up for Canada in that combined team event right here tomorrow on the opening day of the second half of Worlds. And so we'll see what Laurence and Cassidy are able to do. Laurence says, I don't have expectations. I'm kind of a bit of an underdog despite being the world champion. So she'll come into this and you know, they're really going to want to put on a show. They say they love coming to Austria to ski race because this is a place where this sport reigns supreme. So they want to put on a show, and I'd be remiss if I didn't mention the one Canadian man in the tech events, the brother of Jeff Reed, Eric Reed, rolling into town. He's the elder statesman, his sixth World Championship, Britt. He's got a wealth of experience, and he says, you know, I've got a bit of a chip on my shoulder. I want to build in my sixth to try and get to the Olympics a year from now. So it's all in front of these four Canadian skiers who will look to represent the Maple Leaf with a lot of pride.
A wealth of experience, and also a father that knows a thing or two about skiing as well. Okay,
right.
One of my favorite parts, Devin, about being an athlete on this side while you were in the mix zone was how much you always thanked athletes for their vulnerability. You never take for granted the understanding that they have to kind of give a part of themselves to you and have trust in you in that mix zone. You spent a week with a lot of these athletes and had copious amount of conversations. I want to know what's that like lasting impression that this team overall has left on you, and kind of what your biggest takeaway is.
Yeah, thanks for pointing that out, Britt, because I do find it remarkable. Every time an athlete, whether it be in the pool, at the track, here on the side of a mountain, they are risking it all. They are putting so much into it. What strikes me here, this skiing community, this Alpine Canada skiing team, they care deeply about their sport. You have to, because for so many of them, they're away from home, away from family and friends so much of the year because of the infrastructure and the World Cup tour over here. A lot of them have been away from home for 2 or 3 months. At this point, it's becoming a long haul, and Jack Crawford was the most vulnerable I've ever seen him, where he said, I just got to get off my skis and away from skiing for a little bit because I'm exhausted. It wears them down. The other thing, Britt, I'll leave you on is that they take immense pride in representing Canada, and don't think that what's transpired politically over the last number of weeks is lost on these Canadian skiers. They feel an added importance of representing our country with grace and class and pride. And they take that responsibility with immense respect and dignity. And so when I watch them carry themselves, not only when they come to speak to me, but with international media, the way they talk to other competitors, they always congratulate their competitors. It's just really special to me to once again step into a different sporting culture and see how much our Canadian skiers care. And you know they're going to try and put on a show and represent the Maple Leaf with pride for the last half of these World Championships.
Well, they represent the Maple Leaf with pride, and we watch them with pride. So thank you, Devin. As always, you've had a phenomenal amount of coverage. We're appreciative of all the efforts you've had over there. Kudos to the Canadian team. It continues. As you mentioned, the giant slalom and slalom have many, many days left to compete. The team event coming up, all of it will be here on CBC Sports. and make sure you're tuning in. Thanks, Dev.
Thank you, Britt.